for the Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON. And it was my job to essentially manage and maintain the investigative body in the state of Illinois to investigate UFO reports. It just so happened that the January 5th, 2000 case occurred within an estimated 6 miles of where I lived at the time. So literally it was in my backyard, so to speak. I've had a lot of people state, matter-of-factly that, well, clearly what these police officers and other witnesses saw was something military. I have a hard time accepting that when you can look at reports that go back 60 years, spanning worldwide, various countries, and describing essentially the same type of craft, similar lighting characteristics, similar flight dynamics. If you subscribe to the fact that this was some top secret military experimental aircraft, we have to conclude that it was using some radical new type of propulsion technology. The witnesses either described lack of sound or a faint humming sound, nothing related to conventional aircraft as we know it. And when you look at the flight dynamics associated with this aircraft, it was something radically different than aircraft as most of the witnesses knew it. Most of the police officers were used to patrolling around Scott Air Force Base in the general environment. And they knew what aircraft looked like. They knew what aircraft sounded like. This was nothing like what they had seen or heard before. Where we stand with the January 5th, 2000 case at this point is, as I mentioned, an open case. We can't conclude, we cannot close the case. We have to talk about the fact that this is still an open case. Eyewitnesses may still come forward. And in addition, we have the military that had to know about this object. Whether you subscribe to the fact that it's a military craft, whether you subscribe to the fact that it's an extraterrestrial craft of unknown origin, in either case, the fact that this was sighted so close to a major Air Force base has to be of defense interest. Where we stand, though, is the fact that if this is military, if this is some top secret technology, as many people have alluded to, in another 10 years, we'll be looking at the 20-year anniversary of the January 5th, 2000 case. Any top secret aircraft from 2000 should at that point be declassified. If 30, 40 years from now, they still have not unveiled a triangular object, then clearly I think that shows that this is something of non-terrestrial origin. This is not something that our military or the defense industry were able to invent and test fly over southern Illinois.
The time is 4 o'clock in the morning on January 5th of the year 2000. Several police officers and civilians witness a massive triangular-shaped object, and it moves aerodynamically like no aircraft known to the common man. What follows is a detailed reconstruction and analysis of what constitutes a landmark UFO sighting. The story is retold by the actual witnesses and incorporates the actual police radio transmission tapes from that cold January morning.
I got in here about 4 o'clock in the morning, and as I got out of my pickup truck, I happened to look over in the northeast, and I seen that bright star, which I thought it was a star, shining down this way. So I goes in the inside, was in there for a few minutes, and came back out to get in my truck, and I looked over there again, and I thought to myself, oh, that's awful bright and awful low, and I just kept watching it, and once it's moving. So I kept my eyes on it, and I just, as it came into the city of Highland here, over these trees right here, I could see under it. It was like a cluster of red lights, and it was like a 2-story house with a little penthouse on top, and had, I don't know, 6 or 8 windows in it, and there was just a bright light on the inside, but all the same. And as it was traveling so slow, right over the treetops, it just kept it moving, and I was just standing here watching it going out of Highland, and there was windows in the back of it. And I thought to myself, I could barely see it. Well, there would be nobody would believe me what I seen if I don't tell somebody. So I figured, well, I'll go down to the police station and to see if they could see anything.
Lebanon just received a call from Highland PD, in reference to a truck driver just stopped in and said there was a flying object in the area of Lebanon. It was like a 2-story house. It had white lights and red blinking lights, and it was last seen southwest over Lebanon. Honestly, could you check the area?
I asked CENTCOM if they were joking, because again, I joke around with some of the dispatchers there, and they said negative.
It's a joke, right?
No, this is not a joke. I just got off the phone with Nancy from Highland PD.
It's like, okay, so I asked him if the person reporting was 1055, which means DUI or drunk.
Did they say the truck driver was DUI or anything?
And they said no.
He said he was serious.
10-4 now.
Now, during this whole time, while driving out here, I'm kind of going back and forth to St. Clair County, asking, well, what am I supposed to do if I find it, that kind of thing. And
Just a quick question. If I happen to find it, what am I supposed to do with it?
they asked me if I wanted the number for the UFO hotline. I said negative. Even if I saw it, I'm not going to report it.
If I see it, I'm not saying a word.
Obviously, I changed my mind about that.
Also be advised, about the last thing that went over Lebanon, this was approximately 5 minutes ago, was a military cargo plane. It looked like a C-5. Affirmative, it's the air recognition lights got green, red, and also white.
Right in here, when I first saw, again, the double lights, that would have been a little to the left of the one street light and the red flashing light, which is a radio tower out in Summerfield, about 2 meters to the left of the flashing red radio tower.
They were almost touching, and they were so bright. It at first almost looked like car headlights on brights, but they were bigger and brighter than the like street lights that the farmers have around their houses and so forth. Well, I called CENTCOM to let them know what it was I saw, and then I was going to investigate.
Be advised, there's a very bright white light east of town. Looks like it's just east of Summerfield, and it keeps changing colors. I'll go there and see if maybe it's an aircraft. It doesn't look like an aircraft, though.
And then I didn't really speed up that time because I wasn't sure exactly what it was I was seeing. It was at that point when I turned on my overhead emergency lights because again, and my wig-wag flashes because I wasn't sure whether it was a plane going down or not.
When I next saw it, it had turned from 2 into 1, again, gigantic bright light. And during all this, including when it was the 2, there was white light radiating off of it, almost like the Japanese rising sun battle flag.
Okay, we're now coming up. I'm getting ready to turn on the east route 50.
When I got to the bridge at the very east end of town, it had turned into like an elongated cigar. Again, very intense bright light, the white light radiating off of it. I still had my overheads on, continuing towards Summerfield, which is eastbound, and it was still at about the 1, 2 o'clock position from where I was at.
Ground 5404. If you would you contact Scott Air Force Base and see if they have anything flying in this area, please?
It was right here when I noticed that it looked like it was coming towards me. The light appeared to be getting bigger. That's why I thought it was definitely moving. It was kind of moving from my right to the left.
When I saw it was definitely moving towards me, I pulled over to the side of the road. And right where I pulled over, there's a sign that says, test pavement next 21 miles, big green sign.
I turned off the overhead lights, the headlights, turned off the car, and got out of the car on the driver's side. I was standing over here when it got closer. That's when I was able to discern the actual shape, the triangle, and so forth. When it got about approximately 150, 200 foot south of my location and about 1,000, 1,500 foot high off the ground is when it made the flat turn, started heading southwest again very, very slowly, almost like a floating or a moving hovering. I reached back in the car, picked up my radio to tell CENTCOM where it was at and so forth. And when I looked up again, which is spaced about 2 to 3 seconds, it was already over Shiloh, which is about 6 to 7 miles to the southwest.
10-4, well, whether it's a plane or not, it's heading westbound now. It should be really close to Scott now. Matter of fact, if the shadow officer looks up, they can probably see it by now. 2550, I see something, but I don't know what the heck it is.
On January 5th, about 4:30 in the morning, Ledman gets a call for this flying object, and after he has seen it and said that it might be in Shiloh or Lebanon, I'm driving right here, eastbound on Lebanon Avenue, and right in this field is where I observed it.
CENTCOM 5404.
I looked up in the sky and observed this huge arrow-shaped, triangular-shaped object just floating in the sky right in the open field right over here. And it had 3 big bright lights lighting up the entire sky just beneath the flying object. And it was just floating gradually west-southerly along this field over here at a gradual, slow speed. And as I stopped right up the road here to get out and see if I could get a picture or observe it better, the object, with unexplainably in the naked eye, was just from gradually moving to all the way down in the field, like within a snap of a finger or a wink of the eye. And there was no sound. I had my window down. The radio was off, and there was no sounds, nothing coming from the flying object. And it was every bit of 75 to 100 yards that appeared to be wide. I didn't get a very good look at the length-wise. Next thing you know, it just was down the road.
CENTCOM 6004.
Go ahead.
I've got that object inside also.
Are you serious?
It's huge.
10-4.
And that's when I first saw it was a huge object. It was an arrowhead-shaped object. It's concaved in the rear, and it was huge. For the size of the object, it was moving very slowly. Only about 500 to 1,000 feet off the ground. It was very low, so I got a real good look at it. There were 3 lights to the rear of the object, one in the center and one on either side, on the right and left side. And then in the center of the rear, in the concave section, it was like a strobing white light that got bright and then dimmed off as the strobing effect went across. Then on the bottom center of the object, I observed it was a red blinking light. It headed straight to the north, and then as it banked, it made a distinct tilt, and then it turned and went toward the St. Louis Depot direction, which would be to the northwest.
So that you saw a distinct bank.
Yes, it didn't sway in the wind or anything like a blimp possibly would. So I hopped out of my patrol car, went to the rear of the trunk, grabbed the Polaroid, and snapped a quick picture of it as it headed to the north.
What does it look like to you?
It's kind of V-shaped. Looks like it's possibly headed toward Lambert.
Snapped the picture. It was cold out, and the Polaroid camera didn't work real well, and with the coldness and being just a Polaroid camera, not real good night, but...
CENTCOM 604.
Go ahead, 604.
Does Duplo have a Polaroid?
That I don't know.
From the time they told me at Millstadt I'd seen it, I drove probably about 5 miles down the highway and pulled off the side of the road to look, and another officer from a neighboring town came up, and I told him what I was doing. We both laughed about it and made a few jokes, and he left, and I got back in my car and went maybe a quarter mile, and I seen something in the sky. And then, before I'd seen a couple little planes, because Parks Airport's about 5 miles from here. They were coming in, but then after I seen this other object, it didn't appear to be like any plane I'd seen before.
604, 3923 on County 2. 604, then. I'm not sure if this thing item that you say is one here appears to be pretty high in the area. When I first seen it, with binoculars, you can see the different colors. Now it appears to be white. Very large. It's hard to tell. It's pretty far off in the distance.
I looked at it with binoculars. It looked a lot brighter. The lights were a lot more, I guess, had a lot more brightness to them than a regular aircraft would. And about that time, the dispatcher called me back again. I didn't know if I still seen the object. I said yes, and she said that Lambert Airport's on the phone. They said there's nothing in the area around you.
This object was above me about 500 feet, and it was huge. Yeah, it's usually the planes are. It's not low at all.
I couldn't tell exactly how far it was. It's a pretty dark night, and I was looking with binoculars, but it was definitely off to the east pretty far.
The UFO took its course through Highland, Illinois at approximately 4 a.m. It then moved southwest toward the town of Summerfield, where it was spotted by Lebanon police at 4:18. It then approached the police officer at 4:23, where it then shot suddenly to Shiloh 6 miles away in 2 to 4 seconds, and then moved southwest. The UFO then moved to the town of Millstadt, where it was seen at 4:28 a.m. local police time, where it then took a northwesterly direction, and was then spotted by an officer of the Dupont Police Department at 5:03 a.m., where he observed the object turn back to the east.